Welcome to CLASSROOMOLOGY 101. I'm your teacher, Kate, and today I want to talk to you about mentor sentences. So, back in 2004, when I was getting my teaching credential, we were given a ton of strategies. And while I still use some of those strategies, teaching is an ever-evolving process. You're always learning. You're in professional development a lot. And so I feel like what we do for the kids also has to evolve. So when I started, sentence frames were kind of all the rage, if they could be that. And basically, if you don't know what a sentence frame is, you use them for any student, but mostly your EL students will benefit from them. And so what it does is it frames out the sentence and then you leave parts out for them to fill in. And this takes away, that kind of frustration or that block that students feel they have when it comes to writing. So this would be an example of a sentence frame. I went to the blank to blank. So they really could put in anything. Remember, not all students are going to come to you with a lot of vocabulary. So, or even knowledge of how to structure a sentence. So something as simple as this is actually very powerful for those students. However, I felt that this didn't really push students any further. Now, I 100% think sentence frames should have a place in every classroom. However, if you are ready to move past the sentence frames and push your kids into being a bit more creative and producing a bit more with their writing, I prefer to do mentor sentences. It's very similar to this. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. It's very similar. So let's take a look at how I would work with mentor sentences. Okay, so I use, still to this day, I use 6 traits writing. And so what I do is I've mapped out a bunch of different ones. If you don't know the 6 traits of writing, it's usually like sentence fluency, ideas, voice, and some other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. So I love these packets because it really gives the students a chance to see what good writing looks like. And the focus is on ideas, and then I pull one extra focus for when they do their own writing. Kids at my age level are notorious for forgetting that they wanted to say something and then they just throw it in later. And I 100% cannot stand that. But I get it, and they're 8, and they're putting in their best effort, but even still. So one of the things that I would do if I was looking at this is we would read through. Now, this is one of my students, and I don't even know how I ended up acquiring this because it's supposed to be in their notebook, but I digress. So if I'm looking at this, we'll talk about the strong parts of this paragraph. So, they start with a question. This is very typical. I get questions a lot, so we'll talk about other ways to start it, but we'll also focus on what they've done here. So, do you know what a guinea pig is? A guinea pig isn't really a pig. And this is important for students to, when they ask a question and they're saying something descriptive, I like them to then answer the question. Now, that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but for me, I feel like it sets a routine for the kids. It helps them to acquire more sentences, and it helps the reader to understand what direction they're going. So then we would just keep on reading. It is a rodent, just like hamsters and rats. What is a guinea pig like? My guinea pig, Isabel, is a small, gentle pet. Now, one of the things that I talk about with my students all the time is making your sentence more complex. And we talked about how we could stop this sentence and insert the name, because this is what typically students will do. My guinea pig is a small, gentle pet. By the way, her name is Isabel. It's okay, but by adding the name up in here, it makes the writing more complex. What I always tell my students is you want to vary your sentence length. If all sentences are short and blunt, or all run-ons, or too long, it's hard for the reader, right? It starts to feel monotone and the reader starts to not pay attention to what is being written. Whereas if they vary their sentence length, they vary the complexity, it makes it a lot more interesting and the reader will stay engaged. So we talk about this a lot, right? And then if I was to have my students write about their pet, which they did do, and I had a student who was like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this on my own. I would tell them to use these as mentor sentences. So they could essentially do this. Do you know what a turtle is? A turtle isn't really a fish. It's a whatever, right? Reptile? I think reptile. So they could end up using these mentors to help them. They would just switch out the topic, the concept that they're writing about to fit with what they've picked. So if they picked a turtle, they're going to change pieces of this to work for a turtle. If they pick, a giraffe, they're going to change parts of this to make it fit for a giraffe, right? And so essentially, instead of just having one basic sentence frame, you have a whole paragraph for them to play off of. And typically what will happen is when the student looks at this, they're like writing and they'll be like, oh, I can add this or I can add that. And so it really isn't that they'll just copy it, word for word and then change out the, little pieces, like instead of guinea pig, say turtle. They really will start to make it their own. And when they get stuck, we'll discuss which parts of it that they would like to continue to add. So I love using mentor sentences. Whenever I read out loud to my students, I'll stop and talk about a sentence that's done really well or what I really like about it. And you would be surprised at how many students then that day during writing actually try to implement that new concept or that new knowledge into their writing. It's really, really tangible for the kids and they love experimenting and trying. And every time I see some sort of complex sentence or that they use the mentor sentence, I acknowledge that. And I try to give them like huge bravos and shout outs for that in class. Now, this packet that I use is multi-day. So if they didn't like this one, when they go to write about their pet, possibly they want to write about this one. This one is definitely missing some parts. It needs more details. So we had practiced adding extra details, right? And what they had to do is we had a picture here, and I'm a big picture person. I think it's super important, especially for my ELLs or for kids that just don't feel confident in writing. I think illustrations are super important to helping kids understand the context. So what I like about this is there are a couple options for them to write about. So here, they've got the ball that they could play, the dog learned to play, learn to shake, dog biscuits, and a dog home. So they could write any sentence they want, including these details. So now when we look at this, we would say, okay, I have here, I teach my dog tricks. Where in the paragraph would this make sense to add? And so we'll just discuss these things and figure out where they would fit in well. And so the packet goes on. And throughout the entire thing, there is lots of mentor sentences for them to pull from. Look at this one. My pet is soft and white. She is magical. I just say the magic word and my pet squawks. Then she lays a golden egg for me. Where did this wonderful animal come from? I climbed up a tall beanstalk and took her from the giant's castle. Now, I'm going to be starting a series of videos where I spotlight my students' work. Now, you've heard this one. I just read it to you. And my students, they had to choose an animal and they had to write about it. And the student that I'm going to read to you right now, she actually did hers very similar to this. She's a strong writer. She didn't really need the mentor sentences, but she wanted to see if she could try to mimic the one in here. And you know what? To be honest, I think it's a great strategy even for your strong writers. So you can see this one here. I'm going to read hers and you can see how it's different but similar. Okay? So she says, "Can your pet make magic?" Well, mine can. My pet, Pearl, and she did use the complex sentence, or she stopped, used her appositive. So my pet Pearl has silky white fur and a pink mane and tail. Her hooves are sparkly and shiny. She has a sparkly horn. Pearl sleeps laying down or standing up with her head down. She even sneezes glitter. I care for her by taking her on walks and feeding her magical food. Pearl's favorite food is sparkly ice cream. She neighs like a horse. Can you guess what animal she is? So you can see there are many similarities to this piece, and she took that and then added her own voice and her own ideas in there to make it an even longer piece. And this is why you need to be using mentor sentences. If you're interested, the book that I got this from, it's an older publication, but it's called 6 Traits for Writing. And there's just like each trait has, I think, like 5 different weeks. And then, you can kind of choose from there. Because I have 2 classes, I don't ever get through all of them. But you can just see why mentor sentences are so important. So if you liked this video or you found that this video would be helpful in any way, please share this video. In all of my CLASSROOMOLOGY videos, the most important thing to me is that you are sharing these videos. The only way for people to get this information is if you share it, right? And that's the idea. Teachers, we learn best from one another. And I really, did I mention really? That's how my students write. Want people to have this knowledge, because it's not always knowledge that's given in your teaching program. So definitely we can learn from one another. Leave me a comment down below if you use mentor sentences or you have some really cool writing tip that you use with your kids. I'm always looking for new ideas. You can also like, comment, subscribe, all those good YouTube things. I would really appreciate it. And I keep teetering between 80 and 81 subscribers, and I do not know what's going on. I really want to get to 100 or more. So help me out. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Have a good one, everyone, and teach on.